After the First Independence War in 1857, which the British writers called it Sepoy Mutiny, as most of the sepoys were mainly Muslim, and as the last Muslim ruler, the deposed Mughal emperor was Muslim, the conditions of the Muslims became precarious under the colonial rule of the Britishers and the majority Hindu people who were privileged ones. In that situation, the Muslims faced severe political decline and suspicion from the British rulers because many British officials believed Muslims had played a leading role in the rebellion. This condition encouraged Muslim intellectual and political movements, and Muslims became aware of their rights and their conditions. Muslims also gradually became politically aware, and they started thinking about their political identity. With the passing of the century, under the British political rule and in British parliamentary system, they started demanding separate electorate for electing their own representatives. They started demanding for separate electorate. The demand for separate electorate by the Muslims of British India was not born suddenly. It emerged gradually from political experience, historical fears, educational backwardness, and the changing constitutional structure introduced by the British rulers in the Indian subcontinent. Over time, this demand evolved from a plea for political safeguards into a movement for self-determination, and finally culminated in the creation of the independent Muslim homeland of Pakistan in 1947. After the decline of the Mughal Empire in the 18th century and the consolidation of British rule in India, the Muslims of the subcontinent suffered a serious political and social decline. The failure of the uprising of 1857, commonly called the War of Independence by many Indians, and the Sepoy Mutiny by the British, further worsened the condition of Muslims. The British administration largely blamed Muslims for the revolt because the symbolic leadership of the uprising had been associated with the last Mughal emperor, Bahadur Shah Zafar. As a result, Muslims lost political influence, government employment, educational opportunities, and economic strength. During the second half of the 19th century, a new Hindu middle class emerged rapidly under British patronage and modern education. Muslims, however, remained comparatively behind in English education and administrative participation. In this atmosphere, many Muslim intellectuals feared that representative democratic institutions based purely on numerical majority would permanently place Muslims under Hindu political domination. The most important early Muslim reformer in this regard was Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. He understood that Muslims could not compete politically or economically without modern education. Therefore, he launched the Aligarh movement and established the Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College at Aligarh in 1875, which later became Aligarh Muslim University. Sir Syed also developed the idea that Hindus and Muslims were two distinct communities with separate historical traditions, religions, cultures, and social systems. Sir Syed strongly opposed the Indian National Congress when it was founded in 1885. He feared that Congress, claiming to represent all Indians, would in practice become an organization dominated by the Hindu majority. He argued that parliamentary democracy without safeguards would reduce Muslims to a permanent minority. Therefore, he advised Muslims to remain politically cautious and to demand constitutional protections before joining any all-India representative system. The issue of political representation became sharper after the British introduced limited electoral reforms in local bodies and councils. Muslims realized that if elections were conducted on the basis of simple majority rule, Hindu candidates would dominate most representative institutions because Hindus formed the majority population in British India as a whole. The formal demand for separate electorate emerged in the early 20th century. A major milestone came in October 1906, when a large delegation of Muslim leaders, known as the Simla Deputation, met the Viceroy of India, Lord Minto, at Simla. The delegation was led by Aga Khan III. The Muslim leaders requested that Muslims should be given separate political representation and separate electorates in legislative councils. They argued that Muslims were not merely a minority community but a distinct political entity with its own historical role and political interests. The British accepted this demand because they believed it would help stabilize their rule and also balance the growing influence of Congress. Consequently, the Indian Councils Act of 1909, commonly known as the Morley-Minto Reforms, officially introduced separate electorates for Muslims. Under this system, Muslim voters elected Muslim representatives separately. This was the first constitutional recognition of Muslims as a separate political community in British India. Another major development occurred in December 1906 with the establishment of the All India Muslim League at Dhaka. Initially, the Muslim League aimed to protect Muslim political rights within the British Indian framework. It did not immediately demand partition or a separate state. Its early objectives included loyalty to the British government, protection of Muslim political interests, and promotion of understanding between Muslims and other communities. The annulment of the partition of Bengal in 1911 deeply affected Muslim political thinking. The original partition carried out in 1905 by Lord Curzon had created the Muslim-majority province of Eastern Bengal and Assam. Many Muslims supported the partition because it provided administrative opportunities and political importance to Muslim-majority regions. However, strong opposition from Hindu political groups forced the British government to cancel the partition in 1911. Muslims felt that their interests had been sacrificed under Hindu political pressure. This event strengthened Muslim political consciousness and distrust toward Congress politics. In 1916, the Congress and the Muslim League reached the Lucknow Pact. This agreement recognized separate electorates and accepted certain Muslim political safeguards. It appeared for a short period that Hindu-Muslim cooperation was possible. However, the harmony did not last long. The collapse of the Khilafat movement and increasing communal tensions during the 1920s widened the political distance between Hindus and Muslims. Hindu revivalist movements such as Shuddhi and Sangathan, along with frequent communal riots, created fear among Muslims regarding their cultural and political future in a united India. During this period, important Muslim thinkers began to speak more openly about Muslim nationhood. In 1930, Allama Muhammad Iqbal delivered his famous Allahabad address. He proposed that Muslim-majority provinces in northwestern India should be united into a self-governing Muslim state within or associated with an Indian federation. Although Iqbal did not provide a complete blueprint for Pakistan, his speech became one of the intellectual foundations of the Pakistan movement. Around the same time, Chaudhry Rahmat Ali coined the name Pakistan in 1933 in his pamphlet, Now or Never. He argued that Muslims of northwestern India constituted a separate nation deserving an independent homeland. The Government of India Act 1935 introduced provincial autonomy and elections were held in 1937. The results proved highly significant. Congress formed governments in several provinces and its rule alarmed many Muslims. Muslim leaders accused Congress ministries of promoting Hindu cultural symbols, educational policies, and administrative practices that ignored Muslim sensitivities. Whether all accusations were fully justified or partly political remains debated by historians, but the perception among Muslims was powerful and transformative. Under the leadership of Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the Muslim League reorganized itself into a mass political movement. Jinnah gradually concluded that constitutional safeguards inside a united India would not adequately protect Muslim interests. He argued that Hindus and Muslims were two separate nations, with distinct religions, civilizations, laws, customs, literature, and historical traditions. This became widely known as the two-nation theory. The decisive turning point came in March 1940 when the Muslim League passed the Lahore Resolution at Lahore. The resolution demanded that Muslim-majority regions in northwestern and eastern India should be grouped into independent states, where constituent units would be autonomous and sovereign. Later, this resolution became famous as the Pakistan Resolution. During the 1940s, political negotiations between Congress, the Muslim League, and the British repeatedly failed. Congress insisted largely on a strong united India, while the Muslim League increasingly demanded complete political sovereignty for Muslims. The failure of the Cabinet Mission Plan in 1946 further destroyed hopes of a united constitutional settlement. The elections of 1945 to 46 became a political referendum among Muslims. The Muslim League won an overwhelming majority of Muslim seats across British India. This victory demonstrated that the League had become the principal representative of Muslim political aspirations. Communal violence intensified during 1946 and 1947. The British government, weakened after the Second World War and unable to maintain long-term control, finally decided to transfer power. Under the partition plan announced by Lord Mountbatten, British India was divided into two independent dominions, Pakistan and India. Pakistan formally emerged on August 14, 1947. It was created as a homeland for the Muslims of the subcontinent who believed that their religion, culture, political identity, and economic interests required a separate sovereign state. The journey from separate electorate to Pakistan thus covered 4 decades of political evolution. What began as a demand for constitutional safeguards within British India gradually transformed into a movement for nationhood, self-determination, and finally independent statehood. The separate electorate was therefore not merely an electoral arrangement. It was the first constitutional acknowledgement that Muslims of India considered themselves a distinct political community. Over time, historical experiences, political conflicts, constitutional developments, and communal tensions converted that consciousness into the demand for a separate homeland, which eventually became Pakistan.